The following is a story of a young American male to female transitioner who was a victim of male genital mutilation. This person felt only comfortable reaching out to detransitioners in the hopes to find answers to questions that nobody else was willing to take on. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
For some background, I am a 28-year-old American male to female transitioner, and I've been on hormone replacement therapy for 4 years now. If I over-explain this next part, it's because I've been getting harassed, dismissed, glossed over, and misunderstood for talking about my experiences. And if this isn't the right place, y'all can delete this post, and I'm sorry. Recently, I have been doing research on infant male circumcision. I am from the US, and found out last week I was 5 hours old when my foreskin was removed. I have had complications, from it ranging from the usual of poor sensation and dryness, to reoccurring pain and burning on the tip of my glands next to my urethra, and my scar. When other people touch or hold me down there, my parts start to hurt, and I feel nauseous even in sexual contexts when I'm aroused. As far as I know that the pain doesn't come from arousal itself because I can touch myself just fine. I just have to avoid the parts that hurt, plus my erections are not physically painful. The pain and nausea have been around for as long as I can remember, so I doubt that hormone replacement therapy has affected it much either. One of my earliest memories is of climbing onto the bathroom counter and looking at myself naked as I stood there. I think I was 5 or 6, I can't really remember. I didn't really have any feelings about what I saw until I looked at my penis, and to me, it looked ugly. And yes, I know most people think their genitals are ugly. It looked ugly in that it ruined the aesthetic of my body. And I didn't want it there. I didn't even know what female genitals were. I just knew I didn't want my penis. However, when I would shower with my dad and brother, I didn't feel the same looking at them. Their penises looked like they belonged. They're also circumcised. My questions are, is it possible that being circumcised caused me to create a subconscious negative association with my penis? If it did create a negative association, is it possible that my genital dysphoria, the reason I originally decided to pursue transition, is a symptom of this? I want to know if I have these feelings because of what someone else did to me, or if they're an intrinsic part of me. And I'd like input that isn't from the trans subreddits, for hopefully obvious reasons, or from the main subs, because I'm not emotionally strong enough to deal with people harassing me over this. I've tried talking to my parents, but they're more concerned with justifying why they did it. My therapist got awkwardly quiet and changed topics, and no one else who has been through this wants to talk with me about it. That being said, I'd really appreciate input, and please don't tell me I'm better off for being circumcised. I'm against it for non-consenting minors, except for medical emergencies.
Here are some of the responses to the post. The link to the original post will be pinned in the comment section down below.
Possibly I wasn't cut when I was 5 hours old, but I was 5 years old when I was subjected to pointless and futile surgeries to try and find a testicle that doesn't exist. I still have flashbacks of going to Toys R Us, being knocked out at some hospital and then pissing blood and in pain down there for a few days. Since there is some scar down it as a result, I don't like it at all. I never really did the things to loosen the foreskin the doctors kept on telling me to do through my teens.
That sounds horrible. I'll never understand why adults often feel need lie to children about that stuff. And I'm sorry that you went through that. I can't see it as anything short of traumatic. I get vivid nightmares of being raped or otherwise sexually assaulted. And most recently, my parents pinning me down and biting my penis to make me a man. In the past, when my partner angrily shouted at me, I got flashbacks of my dad dragging me into the bedroom to spank me with his belt. But thankfully, all I remember from my circumcision is just an overwhelming sense of pain and helplessness.
In my opinion, there must be something else, because despite I wasn't circumcised, I wasn't even baptized, I still developed a trans identity as well as genital and mostly overall dysphoria, which I think that never will go away.
I know that there are quite a few factors at play, not just this. I went through and was exposed many instances of male violence in my developmental years. My body triggers me, so I want to change it, at least to the best of my ability. In a few years, we'll have 3D printed organs on the market, but my genital dysphoria is pretty bad. I cut myself with scissors trying to cut my balls off when I was 14 and started to get wet dreams. Most of them made me feel disgusting and violated.
So strange. Were you sexually abused somehow? Did you wish back then to have a vagina, or just felt self-rejection?
Back then, I definitely wanted a vagina. I knew ever since I knew what a vagina was when I was 9 or 10 years old. As far as I know, I wasn't sexually abused. I do have gaps in my memories, and I can't even count the number of times I've been asked that. It's just that those aren't a confirmation.
It seems quite possible that your genital dysphoria is related to the problems from your circumcision. I wouldn't say it was from the circumcision itself, more from the fact that you had ongoing pain and discomfort from it. I wonder if you've ever considered legal action regarding what sounds like a botched circumcision. I'm not a lawyer, just wondering. I understand the controversy around circumcisions, and our 2 male sons were not cut because we didn't think it was right to do without their consent. But consider giving your parents some understanding. They didn't expect this exceptional bad outcome. Perhaps they could help you if pursuing legal action was being considered. Have you thought about working with a sex therapist? Is there anything that can be done medically to correct the pain sensation issue other than removal of your genitals? Do you have any social dysphoria? Why are you taking HRT? If you have social dysphoria, do you think it could be related to the fact that you have been imagining life without your male genitals, but can't imagine living as a man in that situation? Or have you always felt more aligned with feminine identity?
I think it's mostly too late for me to sue, and I really don't want to start that kind of drama with my family. And no amount of money will ever make me feel better. I'm nervous at the thought of talking with a sex therapist. It wouldn't help me if they tried to take me off HRT. And testosterone made me feel like a big, ugly ogre. Then I was treated terrible, always being expected to be a man. My empathy, sensitivity, and kindness were seen as character flaws. My body started to trigger me as I began developing downstairs and going through puberty because it made me look more like my dad and brother.
Most likely yes, to questions 1 and 2. Forced genital mutilation is a horrible, traumatizing thing for anyone to go through, no less so for a young child. It's crazy that some people think that it's fine to abuse someone in this way because he's too young to remember it. When is it okay to assault someone just because the person may not remember the assault? Especially since this is something that leaves permanent disfigurement. If one of your very first experiences with your genitals and someone else touching them was this kind thing, it would be no surprise if it caused you to feel uncomfortable with them. I didn't have genital cutting as an infant, but I was sexually abused starting at 8 years old. That sexual violation to my body, especially as a child just growing into myself, definitely made me feel uncomfortable and dissociative about my body and especially my genitals. There's a growing activist group of people as more awareness and knowledge about male circumcision is being discovered and shared. Looking into this could help you find more support and information. I'm really sorry this happened to you. It's the most horrible thing that's still legal everywhere.
Fuck, I can't even imagine. I'm sorry that that happened to you. It fucks me up that it's legal, that there's even a debate, that people who don't have penises think that they have a right to argue over this stuff. That my experiences are just a regrettable outcome, and it makes me question if my body was ever mine to begin with. I honestly feel like my parents have only ever seen me as a doll that belongs to them because of this. And because they would spank my brother and I with their belt while saying that hitting the dogs was wrong because they didn't know better. It's only relatively recently that I learned that not all kids were hit by their parents, and not all boys have their foreskins removed.
The modern idea of mental illness, any illness that primarily presents as changes in thought processes or feelings, mood, is it isn't in your head or purely biological. In many cases, there is biological susceptibility, plus experiences that trigger it. Trauma impacts different people different ways. It's fair to say that there is a long-term impact on you that others may not have. This is called the biopsychosocial theory of health. That is a key word if you want to read up on this idea. I think in trans activism, there is a desire to say gender dysphoria is purely biological. But that's an outdated view that medicine doesn't really use anymore to look at mental health. But all mental illness is a medical illness. The obvious one is PTSD. Not everyone who experiences trauma develops PTSD. Only some people do. But there is a connection between trauma and a mental illness like schizophrenia that we just don't understand. Yet we know schizophrenia is a biological disease too, and they have a model they are studying now to try and prevent it. I want to stress the mental illness is the distress, emotions, negative feelings. The goal of treatment is to reduce those feelings and have a life worth living. There is a lot of uncertainty, but you've made a connection, and there is probably some truth there worth exploring. One of the things they have people with PTSD when we make a connection is to start focusing on what is different now versus then. Now I am adult. I am safe. I get to make decisions about my body at this time. I am with someone who cares for me. Those kinds of things to break the mental connection to the past. I, too, am against any body modification of children without clear medical need.
I hope you aren't thinking of pursuing sex reassignment surgery, as that's far more akin to mutilation than circumcision. Not saying circumcision is right, of course, I'm strongly against it, but two wrongs don't make a right, so to speak.
I have been looking into it, but have not reached a decision yet. If I didn't get it, I would most likely look into an orchiectomy and penectomy to address my dysphoria. On a separate note, as someone who has been circumcised, I used to think that circumcision wasn't mutilation, but that was before I learned how important it is. I consider it mutilation now because it removed half of the skin on my genitals and a very large portion of the nerve endings, either from them being directly severed or due to my glands, a sensitive mucosal membrane, being directly exposed to abrasion. I will never get that skin back. I can stretch what I have, but it will never give me the nerve endings and sensitivity that I had for the first 5 hours of my life, and I will never know what it is like to have pleasurable sex with my penis.
And yet you think your penis and testicles are not important? Where is the cognitive dissonance coming from here?
It's not about them being unimportant. It's about salvaging my relationship with my body, and having protuberances coming out of my crotch still bothers me. I don't like the movement and shifting when I walk. They don't bring me any sexual pleasure, and I never want to. All I really use it for is peeing. And if I want to please a partner, a dildo is just as functional. I can't think of any other reason why that I should keep it when it's bringing me discomfort.
Because you already have genital-based trauma. You don't think castrating yourself will contribute to that? And neovaginas often have nerve issues and thus chronic pain. You're only going to contribute to your issues.
Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like to raise awareness and to help me out.